Registration for voting in the upcoming local government elections will take place this weekend. If you're not registered to vote in your district, this is your opportunity to get down to a voting station and do that. There have been some concerns about COVID-19 infections. Masego Sheburi is the IEC's Deputy Chief Electoral Officer. Mr. Sheburi, good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time today. Firstly, it might be the final voter registration weekend, but certainly showing up at a voting station is not the only way for people to register for the elections.
Indeed, Kathy. Voting stations provide convenience, and they are an equalizer of opportunity because it is likely that a person can access a voting station very close to where they live. But as you correctly point out, there are other additional platforms. For the first time, the Commission has introduced an online voter registration. So a person who has a smart gadget, who has access to the internet, does not need to go to a voting station. They can apply in the convenience of their office or their home to register as a voter. And those who are already registered can update their address details, or if they've moved since the last time they registered, they can update their registration details to accord with the new ward in which they are now ordinarily resident.
From the numbers of the registrations so far, what percentage of the voting population is currently registered to vote in the local government elections?
The voters' roll has in excess of 25 million registered voters, but there's, however, a worrying growing gap between those citizens who are age eligible and those who are registered as voters. The intention of a registration weekend is to refresh the voters' roll by offering younger persons who may have just attained the age of majority an opportunity to register to vote, so that we continuously close the gap between those who are entitled to vote and those who are registered. We are currently in the early 70s of the people who are entitled to vote already registered on the voters' roll.
So about 70% of the people who are eligible to vote are already on the voters' roll. Is that correct?
Indeed.
All right.
That's correct.
So the big issue then going into the local government elections is going to be to try and get as many of those people out to actually vote on voting day. From the patterns that you have seen over the years, it's quite interesting to me that this year we have the age group, and I just want to get it right, the 30 to 39-year-olds, just with over, you know, the males 3.1 million, excess of the females 3.5 million in excess of. It seems to me that the age group 30 to 39 represents the highest constituencies in terms of eligible voters going into this election.
Indeed, our concern, and that's the reason why we're running partly a youthful campaign. Our concern is to invigorate young persons to register as voters. As you'd observe that the age cohort 18 to 29, there is a worrying underrepresentation in those age cohorts. And consistent with the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, we are increasingly a young population, and therefore the focus of the Commission is to attract and target the 18-year-olds up to the 29-year-olds so that we can invert their enrollment on the voters' roll and their participation in elections, both as voters and as candidates.
I would imagine that the easiest way to do that is to meet them where they are. And when one looks at the voter registrations, especially the breakdowns provincially, there's some provinces that are really not doing well in terms of the percentages of their population that have actually registered to vote.
Indeed, and as a result, we are working very in collaboration with universities and TVET colleges. We had our engagement in August, in terms of which the vice chancellors and principals of institutions of higher learning have committed to work with us to invert the underrepresentation of young voters on the voters' roll. We have strategies also to target those who are outside of formal schooling, But as you correctly point out, you must engage them on platforms that they occupy. Our campaign will increasingly move into the new media, on social media platform, and also on digital platform, and also that we're making an opportunity for voters to register online. We think that younger persons will avail themselves of that opportunity.
So once the voter registration weekend is done and dusted with, it of course then points us to the finalization in terms of the candidate registration lists, at least as far as things stand right now, pending whatever outcome of the matter that's before the Constitutional Court. And as far as the timetable of the IEC is concerned, what happens next after this weekend?
In terms of the court order handed down on the 3rd of September by the Constitutional Court, following the voter registration weekend, the minister responsible for cooperative governance and traditional affairs is now empowered to proclaim and set a date of an election. We anticipate that that proclamation will be handed down on Monday, the 20th of September. On that day, the Electoral Commission will issue a timetable. And as the name suggests, the timetable will include the key activities that political contestants, political parties, and independent candidates must meet, and the cutoff times for those activities in order to guide proper arrangements for the election. A key feature of that timetable will be a period for objections to the voters' roll, where people can raise objections on the inclusion or exclusion of certain persons from segment of the voters' roll. It will also have a period of candidate nomination in order that persons who may have not had a desire to stand for candidates but now wish to stand as candidates can register and stand for candidature. And those who may not have been registered before and are now registered and therefore entitled to be members of a municipal council can exercise an election to whether stand as candidates or just to participate in elections as voters and nominators.
So how soon would the IEC need the Constitutional Court to come to a determination on this factor in order to avoid what would be the doubling up of work? Let's say the Constitutional Court says they actually weren't saying the candidate registration list must be open, and we know that it's a race against the clock for the IEC right now. So all the time that needs to be spent preparing for the election needs to be spent doing exactly that. There's no time to actually be doing things that you don't have to be doing.
Indeed, that is so. And for that reason, we are not opposing the application currently in front of the court as it relates to direct access to that court. We think that the sooner the court makes its pronouncement, the better for all contestants and independent candidates. However, I must just add that we are opposing the relief that the party is seeking at that court.
Yes, but how soon would you need that judgment out in order for it to not fundamentally affect the timetable that you're going to be releasing after the 20th of September?
We have filed replying affidavits yesterday, and today the main applicant has filed their replying affidavit with the court. We are hopeful that the court will understand the agency of the matter, and if we are favored by an outcome by, say, Monday the 20th, we should still be able to salvage and abide and prepare for the elections in terms of what the court authorizes.
All right. Let's leave it there for tonight. Thank you so much, Masego Sheburi, the IEC's Deputy Chief Electoral Officer.